The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Hi, I'm Andrew Hermiz, and you're listening to The Secrets of The Batman, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings of this movie. Joining me today on the panel are David Handlos. Hi, David.
Hello.
And Irving Nestor.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Before we begin, just want to remind you to be sure to follow Secrets of Movies and TV Shows on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at the StarQuest YouTube channel, where you should click the bell to get notifications. Like I mentioned, we are discussing The Batman, and this is the Matt Reeves directed, Robert Pattinson starring version of the Caped Crusader that has enjoyed plenty of box office success, critical success, and plenty of a lot of big time viewership on HBO Max. I think this was one of the few films that HBO kind of tested that. I think it was a 45-day release in theaters and then straight to HBO Max. So I think it was one of the few success stories where it still made plenty of money in the box office with a shorter theatrical run. And then obviously HBO Max getting a ton of subscribers, I think, with its release. But yeah, before we get into the sort of the ins and outs of the film itself, what were your initial impressions of the film? What did you think of it? Just overall, I guess, what's your brief review of The Batman?
I guess I'll start by saying my brief review is I liked it. It's one of those. It's like every Batman's series of Batman movies seems to be a bit different. In some cases, no better, no worse, but just different. In this, it just for me, I have to be in the right mood for this one, because it's basically Batman. What if they tried to make a Batman film crossed with Seven? In my mind,
yeah,
Totally.
Whereas if I'm kind of in a goofy mood, I'll watch Adam West. So, but this is one of those ones. If I really just if I'm in the right mood, I honestly did enjoy it. I didn't expect to enjoy it because I only remember Pattinson from either being in Harry Potter or in Twilight and nothing else. But he surprised me. So I think he did really well, and I thought this was an enjoyable movie. I just had to be in the right mood for it.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it myself. I'm a filmmaker, so I'm typically pretty up to date with what's going on in the film world, but this film caught me by surprise. I think because I had a particularly busy set of months going up to it. Then I saw some promo stuff for it, and I'm always down for a Batman retraversal. I actually became a filmmaker off of watching The Dark Knight. That was like the big inspiration for me. So anything Batman related is welcome. So yeah, I was curious as to how we would tackle it this time. And yeah, it is super dark. It's literally dark in terms of the visual language. But also, the themes are, Seven-esque is literally perfect. We're really going that detective route in even more noir than noir somehow. I first few scenes was a little, testing the waters of the language of this film. I was like, are we really going to get like a little too much with this? Is it going to be a little too much? But then it became really understandable the sort of angle the film was going to take, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I really, really love this film. I it's hard to compare, obviously what everyone tries to do is compare it to the other Batman films. And obviously the Dark Knight is sort of the universal standard, for a Batman movie.
No love for Adam West. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
sorry. I'm kidding.
He has a special place in my heart for sure. I definitely grew up watching the reruns of the TV show. But yeah, I initially after I watched it, I'm like, oh, this is the best. This is better than the Dark Knight. It's sort of that emotional reaction, that visceral reaction after walking out of a movie theater. But after having some time with it now, and having watched it a few more times, I would maybe, if I had to pick one, maybe the Dark Knight still edges it out a little more. Mostly because of Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. That's what really kind of carried the film, for in my opinion. And obviously had the benefit of sort of being that first film out the gate that sort of changed the landscape of superhero films. I mean, had the Batman been the first one to come out, I'm sure we'd be talking about the Batman in that way. But yeah, like I said, I really love this film. I was very impressed, as you were, David, by Robert Pattinson's performance. I was probably a little less surprised because I've been into his lesser known work, after the Twilight films, like movies like Good Time, and The Lighthouse, which I really recommend people to watch. So I knew he was going to do a really fine job. And obviously being a huge Matt Reeves fan, I was excited to see his sort of interpretation of the Batman, and having been a fan of, since Cloverfield, basically, I don't think he's made a bad movie. The Planet of the Apes movies and Let Me In, which is also a wonderful film. Yeah, it had all the makings of a good film, and I think they delivered. I love the whole noir Seven feel again that they were going for, and I think there was a good balance of that and the sort of spectacle that we expect with these superhero films. It was very dark and gritty again from a cinematic visual standpoint, but it was actually a surprisingly funny film. I thought, Robert Pattinson's take on the Batman, he's so like he really dives into that emo, depressed like persona, like the angst that when he's put in like these sort of real world situations, he's sort of unintentionally funny. So I found that sort of a great way to kind of add like humor into it. And then obviously, you have the Penguin, who, is played by an unrecognizable Colin Farrell.
Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah. Is this, yeah, I'm sure we'll get more into his character as we go on, but yeah, I mean, down the board, Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano as the Riddler, Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon, John Turturro as Falcone, Andy Serkis as Alfred. I mean, it really benefited from having such great actors carrying the sort of weight of the film throughout it, and I thought it did such a fine job and brought us something new and refreshing to a superhero that we're gonna see all the time, because he's it's Batman, Superman, and obviously with all the Marvel superheroes, Avengers and that sort of thing, we're gonna see cinematically for a long time, and we're gonna see recreations of them. It wasn't that long ago that we had Ben Affleck's turn, so I thought it had a lot of things could have went wrong, and we've seen Batman movies go wrong plenty of times. Bat nipples. But I think they knocked it out of the park, and I think it didn't have the pressure of being a part of any sort of cinematic universe. it got to create its own sort of world. So yeah, I thought very highly of the film. And yeah, with that, I think we'll sort of get into like a breakdown of the film. But I kind of want to just just get again your thoughts on sort of more of the themes and what the film is conveying, rather than just going sort of blow by blow what the movie's about. I think enough people have seen it by now. So right off the bat, I mean, it just opens up with yeah. Wow, nice catch. Sorry. Nice catch. I should have caught that myself. Thank you for catching that. But right away we have this scene of which is later to be revealed as the Riddler, spying on the apartment of this mayor. And it's sort of this POV shot, right, of like a scope or some binoculars, and it starts off like a horror film. It starts off like again, we're probably going to bring up Seven and David Fincher films a lot, but a sort of that Seven feel to it. And then that film that he did about that serial killer that's I'm blanking on right now, it sort of reminded me of that as well. But it's very, I mean, this is unlike any Batman film that we've seen, unlike any superhero movie that we've seen, quite frankly, where it kind of opens up like that, and then he suddenly appears, as the glow of the TV pops up, and he's right there, and then it's just a very, I mean, for a PG-13 Batman film, they were really pushing the envelope there. I think they were right on the edge. So just a very brutal murder, with a sort of unique carpenter tool that plays a role later in the film. So yeah, just what did you guys think of the opening of the film and how it got things started?
Well, you go ahead.
Yeah.
Irving, go ahead.
Yeah, Irving, go for it.
Yeah, no, super interesting. Got me hooked immediately. It's always interesting because Nolan's particularly known for this, but like openings tend to give you a good layout of the entire visual language, thematic language of the rest of the film, often. And in this case, I immediately got the detective sort of like, we're focusing on a mystery, and that's like the opening language, which I really appreciated. And the way it's shot is just brings an intrigue immediately, because you're wondering whose point of view are we looking at, what's behind the walls that I can't see, right, because we're exterior to the building. So I thought it was a great way to hook an audience into the language of the film.
Yeah, this when I first saw it, when I started seeing that was the first clue. I'm like, this isn't going to be a superhero film. Batman's always listed as superhero. This is going to be different, and I was, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised the whole time. Just this was not a this was going to be solving this was more about solving crimes than it is about superheroics and vengeance, of course.
Vengeance.
I'm vengeance. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Speaking of "I'm vengeance," we get that line near the beginning of the film as well, where when we first hear Bruce Wayne's voice. Because another unique thing about this film is that he narrates the movie, and we learned that he's been Batman for 2 years. So again, another sort of unique take where it's not an origin story, but he's still fairly young, and it's not coming off of a previous film. It's not like a sequel, so we're just right in there. He is Batman. The Gotham is aware of who this guy is, and it's setting the landscape. So in this narration, we see that he sort of describes how he just comes out of the shadows, and wherever there's a dark corner and there's a criminal, they have to second guess themselves or watch their back, because it's like, oh, it's is this guy in a bat costume going to jump out and beat me up?
Yeah.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, David. What were you saying?
Well, and this is where I get all analytical, but I mean, that's like you said, that he's inexperienced. He's only been at this for 2 years, but well, I'd call it 2 years experience, but in the Batman world, not. That's one thing that kind of sets him apart from, say, like the Nolan by the time, Dark Knight or anything like that, where it's like, yeah, he's he's definitely got the anger and he's got the skills, but he doesn't have, like, he comes out of the shadows and he is angry and he is violent, but he doesn't have the confidence that some of the other that you see in some of the other Batman films. That's where he comes out. He comes out swinging. He doesn't always, doesn't automatically, it would scare me, but it doesn't automatically have that, like, confident, I'm going to strike fear in the hearts of everybody. He is angry, and people are going to know it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we see in that scene where he confronts those, group of thugs with the makeup on, and he picks one out and just pummels him almost to death. He's right at that edge. This is, again, and they make it clear in the film, this is a Batman who doesn't kill, but he doesn't know his limits yet. I think you're right. He's 2 years in the game, and he's still carrying that emotional weight of losing his parents, and he's seeing his city being, torn apart, by the mafia, and just watching it crumble. So he has that sort of passion to save his city, and he makes that remark to Alfred, at some point in the movie. He's like, this is my legacy. Batman is my legacy. It's not the company. It's not anything else. So that passion is shown in is taken out through his violence. And we see that in the scene. And then, we start to revisit the murder scene. We saw Riddler kill a guy in the beginning. So we have we see Lieutenant James Gordon at the apartment investigating, and he brings Batman onto the scene because, again, this is a very, very, and they made no bones about this. This is the world's greatest detective. They want to focus on that aspect of the Batman, which is, what he's always sort of regarded as in the comics, and sort of an element that wasn't always focused on in previous films. That's definitely something Matt Reeves wanted to really convey. And right off the bat, we know we see that James Gordon really trusts Batman, so they already have that sort of relationship. But he's sort of the only guy that can vouch for him. Everyone else kind of looks at him funny. It's Halloween Day. I think it was the commissioner that just kind of makes that snarky comment. He's like, "Oh, this must be your favorite day of the year." And the Batman's just sort of brooding and just sort of looking around and not saying much, but just sort of noticing clues. Yeah, it kind of feels like if you ever played any of the Arkham games, it's like, yeah, it's sort of like, oh, there's a clue, that's a clue. I mean, so yeah, just in general, I mean, this sort of emphasis on Batman as a detective. What did you guys think of that sort of take?
I think that take was overdue, where, like, focus on the detective work. Obviously, I mean, some things you definitely spot on, like, ideas like using like some of the previous Batman didn't just feed everything to a computer and see what happens. But he's actually like, okay, this is a site. He's using this as a cipher and trying to decode stuff, and that's Alfred still has to help a little bit, but it's pretty spot on. I mean, he did make obviously still making some mistakes along the way that even the Penguin had to point out. But that's very good. I mean, it's good to see how his mind works. It's not just his fists. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was a really bold direction for sure because, when you think of superhero anything, people think immediately to how is this person going to uniquely punch something?
Mhm.
That's like that's the selling point. With here, the risk is like, is detective work even interesting, right, to the audience that this movie's sort of trying to nab? And I think Matt Reeves did a great job of making it super interesting. Instead of it being sort of like a plot moving point, the mystery aspects as it was in like prior Batman movies. In this one, it's fully part of the story. We're wondering, the audience is wondering what's going on, who is who, who's caused what the entire time, and that becomes our focus as the audience too, which he showed masterfully that is definitely possible to make that interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like how they showed that he's just sort of like in his own league. He's noticing things that none of the other detectives or cops are noticing, and he's not just relying on the technology. Like you mentioned, David, he's not just it's not just some fancy device because he's a billionaire. Like, yeah, he has that stuff. Like, he has the contact lenses that records everything, and he can go back and sort of revisit what he was analyzing earlier and that sort of thing. But he's there. He's actually in the crime scene, and he's getting to sort of touch and feel and walk his way through. And I think that, again, he's really, I don't think he has a line. Maybe he says one or two things to Gordon. But through the editing and the cinematography, I think they did a really nice job of just showing visually how he's the world's greatest detective and how he's just, smarter than everyone in the room. So I really appreciated that about the film. After that, we in that scene, obviously we get the first riddle. This is the Riddler, the main villain. And there's a cipher. What does a liar do when he's dead? And it doesn't take, Bruce that long to figure out, like, he lies still. Sort of that double entendre there, where he's literally lying still because he's dead, but also the lies that come with being a liar, right? The lies continue. This is not going to be the first murder. The first sort of action taken by the Riddler. After this, we get to see the Batcave. We meet Alfred for the first time. This is a more, I guess, a younger. You can tell he's been through some stuff. I mean, he has a cane, and he's a little more involved. It's sort of similar to the Jeremy Irons Alfred, where he's really involved with Bruce and the detective work. But we find out in the film, like, he's helped train Bruce, his fighting style and all that sort of thing. So again, a different take. We're getting a different take of Batman and a totally different take on Alfred. So what do you guys think of this sort of iteration of Alfred?
Yeah, I thought he was super cool. Definitely made me want to learn more. So we'll see how much more we get of him in the future. But super different. Seemed like we were going to compress some of his Bruce's backstory a little bit into Alfred, which is interesting. Different filmmakers have made different choices about that. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's this Alfred is not a butler. He does not buttle.
Right.
This guy's like a head of security or something. He's not not gonna make me a scone. They definitely seem to have a kind of I don't know. I thought it was kind of strange where like you could tell that he's been through some stuff, but and he's got his own like trauma to work out, but he's trying to pull Bruce out of the trauma. So it's like, it's trying to pull Bruce out of the trauma to lead a more normal life. It's like pot calling the kettle black here. You're both, both could probably use some more.
Yeah. And then we see Alfred, sort of try to tackle, another, cipher. And it leads them to find the word drive. And then, then we get Batman with Gordon going into the mayor's, the just deceased mayor's garage. They find the car was broken into, and it contains a flash drive, and a severed thumb.
That was a dark joke.
Yeah. The Riddler. Again, I thought they did a good job of the Riddler obviously being heavily influenced by the Zodiac killer. I think both from a visual standpoint and from a just his method, leaving clues and notes and stuff like that. And then obviously the movie that I couldn't remember earlier, directed by David Fincher's about the Zodiac, was definitely a big influence. So yeah, we're getting more and more into the mind of the Riddler and how he operates, and with the severed thumb, it's used to open up this flash drive, and we get these incriminating photos, right, of the mayor with this woman, Annika, who is outside this club, the Iceberg Lounge. And then, we're starting to get all these things are leading to the rest of the film. And the Iceberg Lounge obviously leads us to Oswald Cobblepot, better known as the Penguin. So we see the Batman, go straight to the Iceberg Lounge. He, and sort of a funny recurring thing throughout the film is what is Bruce going to do when he gets to the door of the Iceberg Lounge? So in this first entry, he's greeted by a couple thugs at the door, and then he just fights his way through them. he's Batman. He's like, okay, you guys are no match for me. Yeah. And then we meet the Penguin. He questions him about the pictures and on all that, and then obviously he, I don't know anything. Yeah, a lot of people come through here. Yeah, that sort of deal. But we notice, he takes a notice of this young woman that's a waitress here at the Iceberg Lounge, and we realize it's Zoe Kravitz, who plays Selena Kyle, Catwoman, and she's working the club. And he notices, a little drug deal go down, a drop, I guess, between the Penguin and Selena Kyle. So he notices there's, obviously being with his detective mind, notices that there's something going on there. So he decides to keep an eye on her, and he notices that she notices the pictures. And he's like, oh, there's probably a connection there with her and Annika. So he follows her. Long story short, Annika is her roommate, and a very good friend at the very least. Selena decides to sneak out as Catwoman and go to the apartment. Go to the closed off crime scene. So yeah, just with that, let's circle back to the Penguin, because again, Colin Farrell. I mean, if no one told you it was Colin Farrell, you would never know it was him. Never would have known it. Never. So it's really impressive prosthetics and makeup, and then obviously the performance. I think was superb. So what do you guys think of Colin Farrell's take on the Penguin, David?
Amazing. I would not. Again, yeah, I would not have guessed that. Just so he put so much into that. Just because if he it looked like his normal self, I would have like kept comparing him to like Bullseye or any other psycho characters he's played in the past. But he was, let's say, what's the phrase? He disappeared into the role quite well. There you go. And without going Burgess Meredith, he actually was. It was great.
Yeah. No, I agree entirely. He had all the bravado, the swagger. Really captured that really well. He became, well, he was literally larger than he than he actually is. But his personality also was pretty big on the screen. So I enjoyed every part of his performance for sure.
Yeah, he was incredible. And again, we see the sort of first interaction between Bruce and Selina. And yeah, we I think the last time we had a take on Catwoman was Anne Hathaway in The Dark Knight Rises. So we have Zoe Kravitz's take on the character, and yeah, I mean there are plenty of iterations in the comics of the Catwoman character, and obviously her ties to the Batman. I mean, more recently in the Tom King run, it's a very they end up getting married. It's a very romantic sort of connection that they have that's very complicated, obviously. And I think the movie does a good job of this sort of getting into that aspect of their relationship. Obviously we're seeing the origins of it here, but right away you could tell, and again, this is I think Pattinson, this is what he does really well with this performance, is he says so much with his eyes. Mm-hmm. So whether the mask is on or off, so it's like when he first notices Selina at the Iceberg Lounge, it's like you can see the attraction, but at the same time he's also doing detective work. And then obviously as the film goes on, there's more and more of an attraction, obviously mixed in with all the complications of Selina's life and the life she's chosen. So yeah, what did you guys think of Bruce and Selina's relationship and how it was portrayed in this film?
It wasn't. I didn't want to say just automatically good, because it was. It was. Yeah. But it wasn't. Yeah. There's a lot with the eyes. Even just like that one moment where they're getting ready for that. It was. I wouldn't call it a sting or whatever. He's sending her into the Iceberg Lounge, and he has that moment where he's like, "Look at me." Yeah. Yeah. So it's just moments like that that don't always happen. That was really well played. And like the wannabe comedian in me is like, hey, it works both ways. So it was there. There was lots of stuff, lots of acting that had nothing to do with dialogue.
Yeah. As like a foil to this Batman's like perpetual loneliness, right? He's sort of like taken on, sort of leads into like the larger themes in the film, but like he sort of takes on more than a human probably should, right? And she sort of provides this interesting angle of relief, to that, and I think that's what thematically they're hinting at. It's interesting to see how it'll develop, but like what is the core attraction there, and how will, given their both of their obvious problems, how will that manifest over time? I think that's an interesting question, for sure. And then the eye stuff, I agree entirely. This film is almost entirely in the eyes. I don't know if they did anything particular to Pattinson's eyes. I wouldn't even be surprised if they were constantly eye dropping his eyes with stuff that made it water and the red bloodshot, really gives you the idea that he's like trying to literally manifest, what a human thinks is justice, right? He's trying to take on that sort of that persona, when maybe it's a little bit much.
Yeah, I think just with this is the first time, like, speaking of the eyes, that we see the black makeup that's underneath. In other Batman films like that, the black makeup just magically disappears.
Yeah.
It seems like whenever he takes the mask off. So again, I think that's just another example of showing, like, just the sort of details of what it takes to be the Batman. And then obviously just it adds to, like, the sort of state visually. It evokes the emotional state of Bruce, and gives him that, sometimes it's funny to mention, but like the sort of emo look that they were going for.
Is that makeup, or is he just emo today?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and they, it's no secret that Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson, part of the influence of Bruce's character was Kurt Cobain, and obviously that Nirvana song that kind of they revisit throughout the film is a big part of the score. Michael Giacchino's, I thought, brilliant score.
Absolutely.
For the film.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of again, films are only are heightened so much by how good the score can be, and I thought that it was a brilliant turn by him. And visually, I mean, Greg Fraser was the cinematographer. I mean, he did movies like he did Dune. So if you've seen Dune, he's and how visually stunning that film is, that gives you a sort of idea of how good he is at his job. He also did Rogue One, Zero Dark 30. So again, as amazing cast and amazing crew behind it, I think all led to the sort of things we're talking about, like those little details in the eyes. I'm sure Greg had a big part in just knowing how to light the eyes and feature them visually, and then again with the score, how to each character had their own sort of theme. The Riddler has a theme, Catwoman, Batman. And I thought, he knocked it out of the park. So what do you, with that, I mean, I guess, so what did you guys think of the score of the film? And what do you guys think of, did it elevate the film? Was it okay? I mean, we've had guys like Hans Zimmer do, scores for the Batman, Danny Elfman. I mean, these are the biggest, names in the game. So I know maybe hard to compare. They all kind of have different styles, but what did you think of the score compared to the Batman films in the past?
I definitely don't have an ear for music, but I guess I'll just say, like, you don't know what it's that I didn't notice how strong the score was until it wasn't there, because I was rewatching this just in short order, just kind of looking through this. The other day I was just rewatching it just to make sure I was familiar with the movie, and I had it muted because I was just watching on low volume with closed caption while I was doing something else. I'm like, and then I turned the volume up. Oh, that's what I was missing. So it's like, oh, that's why I felt like I was missing something.
Yeah, one of my best friends is a composer, and so I get to hear his opinions on film scores all the time, and so he's helped me to think about these things a lot more. So I'll always give an ear to that a lot more than I would before because of him. And Giacchino's has been a just incredible composer for a long time now. One of the best scores, I think, is the Incredible score that he did. It's just
so
integral to that film.
Yeah, absolutely.
But here he's like equally awesome. It's Zimmer's great. You know, I'm not. I thought the Dark Knight or the Nolan trilogy of music is definitely iconic, but there's like a lot of Zimmerism sort of happening in a lot of movies these days, and it can get really tiresome
Sure.
because people forget melody, which is kind of sad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we have like, you know, it's a lot more muted and dull because that matches the aesthetic the film is going for, but at least we come out with like memorable tunes, right? And that's like immediately what I did when I came home is I started listening to the score because I remembered it, which is like not a lot of movies these days. You remember the score after you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Zimmer is sort of the master of taking like one or two notes and just knowing how to layer them and play with them throughout a throughout a film. And then Giacchino, like you're right, it's more melodic and like you mentioned, muted, but there's definitely a melody there. There's definitely something that you remember after the film. I was really impressed by it. And speaking of music in the film, Ave Maria is sort of the movie opens with Ave Maria. And sort of the, I guess, middle of the film, maybe a little before the middle, I guess, when we get to the mayor's funeral. It's kind of, I would say that's probably the start of Act 2. And we, towards the end, we get the Riddler sort of singing Ave Maria himself, sort of mocking it in a manic sort of way, which I thought was interesting. I mean, it was obviously a very specific choice of song. You know, it opens and almost kind of closes with it, and it sort of plays a part in the film. I want to maybe just get your ideas of sort of what you thought that the song represented in the film. If that's even something that you maybe noticed or thought about.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a curious thing. I definitely noticed it. Of course, I think it was even the credits. I don't know if it was the first credits song. Maybe it was like the second because I sat there and was listening. I'm always interested to hear which things end up in the credits. I wasn't sure 100% if we were supposed to make something of that or if it was more so calling back to, excuse me, sort of like the mafioso style movies where you get the same sort of eerie juxtaposed like Ave Maria in these like really gory scenes. But yeah, that is a good question. That is a good question. Yeah,
I mean, again, it's probably one of those things where you can sort of leave it up to your own interpretation. But you know, after thinking about it and watching the movie a bunch of times, I was like, well, you know, it could just be like a song that's just like a callback. You know, it's like, okay, the movie opens with this song, and then we realize, you know, the more we learn about the Riddler's character, like he was an orphan, he was a part of the same orphanage, the orphanage that Bruce Wayne's parents started, which plays a big role in the film towards the end. And I think at the very least, it's just something that ties things together. You know, it's like when we get to the funeral scene, the mayor's funeral, it sort of cues up the Riddler's like, you know, big attack, you know, at that funeral, where, you know, the car plows in and then we see I think it's the DA, right? The DA and he's got a bomb, you know, strapped to him, and they got to figure that stuff out. But again, it's sort of a cue for the Riddler. And then at the end, obviously the Riddler is sort of singing it to Bruce while he's going through this manic episode at Arkham. which is just serves. I think it serves as a reminder of where the Riddler comes from. Is like, and then if you want to think deeper into the song, it's like, okay, it's Ave Maria, is about the blessed Virgin Mary, the mother of Christ, and maybe the Riddler sees himself. I mean, he definitely doesn't see himself as like a godlike figure. He definitely refers to himself as a nobody. He says as much. To Bruce again at that pivotal scene at the end, and he was kind of relying on Bruce to take the mantle, or at least go with him on this journey of saving Gotham in the way he wanted to save Gotham. So he does see himself as a savior, so to speak, because he had this grand plan on how to save Gotham, and it was very biblical. I mean, he wanted to literally flood Gotham. Yeah. So there's like little biblical ties, I guess, that go along with it that you could take from it. But I thought it was, at least there's some interesting things that you can sort of take from it when you really analyze, the song choice. So I thought that was interesting at the very least. So kind of moving along in the film again, I mentioned the funeral scene. Bruce makes that connection with the mayor's son, like he just lost his father. Bruce obviously can relate to that, and then we see this again, a very riveting scene with this car plowing into the funeral. We find the DA with a bomb around his neck. There's a phone taped to his hand, and there's a message for the Batman. So he basically literally it's a FaceTime with the Riddler, and he gives a series of riddles, and Batman helps with the first few riddles, but the ultimate riddle at the end is asking Coulson, the DA, to give up the rat. Right. There is a rat that's tied to all of this, and why the Riddler is doing this in the first place. And we see like he literally chooses to die instead of giving up the rat, because he knew like what that would cost if he gave him up. It would cost probably the life of his family. Again, it's just painting the Riddler as just this horrifying villain. The fact that he can get another man to do that to himself was I thought, again, just an added sort of element to the Riddler's character that made him so menacing. So after that, we get Batman is knocked unconscious by the explosion. He wakes up in a police station, and he has a sort of tussle with the Gotham PD, and the Gordon has to calm him down, and then we get that funny scene with Gordon trying to create a distraction for Batman to escape, where he asks him to punch him in the face. And then later in the film he's like, you didn't have to punch me that hard. He's like, and Bruce is like, I didn't. I didn't think it was and we see this cool scene of the Batman deploying his parachute, and he sort of flies under a bridge, and then he has this crash landing. So again, I think we're seeing the Batman not in his prime. I mean, we see this sort of initial nervousness, hesitation, before he deploys the parachute when he's on top of the building. And then we see him have that crash landing. It's like, oh, wow. Like in other films, Batman usually does stuff like that. It's like butter, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's totally confident. But again, it goes to where we are with this character. He's still young in the game, and probably that might have been his first time having to do that, like in action. Maybe he's practiced it, of course, but maybe that's the first time he's had to do it in a real world situation. So then we see, Batman and Gordon, they think Penguin is probably the rat. So they tail him, they catch him during a drug deal. And then who's there? Catwoman. She's got she's on her own mission, because, Annika is she discovers Annika is dead at this point. She finds her body in the trunk of one of the cars. When she tries to go, and then they also discover a bag of money. When she tries to go for the money, shootout naturally. So it's Batman and Gordon are in the shootout, and then Batman gets in the Batmobile, and we get this amazing chase scene.
Absolutely.
It was so riveting to watch in the theater. I feel for the people that didn't get to see this in the theaters, because this scene especially really lent itself to watching it on the biggest and loudest screens possible. But yeah, after the Batman's chasing him, we get that iconic shot, from the trailer where the Penguin flips over and in his car, and the Batman's approaching him, and we see that upside down perspective. They end up interrogating him. Penguin's like, I'm not the rat. And they leave him handcuffed, which was funny because he's like, hey, you guys just gonna leave me here like this? And then that leads to the Batman getting another message from the Riddler. And that's what leads him to the orphanage. We see a bunch of drug addicts, and we see a projector that's displaying campaign footage of Bruce's father, Thomas Wayne, when he ran for mayor. And then that's when they realize that Bruce might be the target himself. That's when they race back home, and then Alfred gets the package, and it's a bomb. And then Bruce has to deal with that. Alfred is sent to the hospital, and so with that, what did you guys think of how they incorporated sort of Bruce's family? In previous films, they really didn't go deep into the Waynes, other than showing how they got killed, a few different times. But really, this is the film, and especially how the film wraps up, it has a lot to do with Thomas Wayne and Martha. So what did you think of the incorporation of his family and that sort of direction, and what they had to do with the plot?
Yeah, no, I loved getting a more fleshed out Thomas and Martha, for sure. In terms of obviously we don't get to meet them per se, but we do get to know about what they've been up to, and a lot of different. Thinking of the Arkham games, kind of. There's stuff related to them as well. Which is interesting, but we still don't get a direct involvement in terms of directly related to the core plot. And I thought that was really cool that he had to confront the fact that he's older now. He didn't know what his parents were really doing. He couldn't understand what they were really doing, and so he has to come to this question of, have I essentially idolized my parents when I didn't really even know them? Like, does he even understand them? Of course, I didn't think when we had to question their motives, I immediately knew that we're not going to stay here. Like that can't be.
Right.
This is too important to Batman's character that they be good people. So, we reversed on that, but I thought it was a good compliment to his assumptions going into becoming the Batman.
There's always been this idyllic vision of Thomas and Martha Wayne, but I mean, it calls into question, like, they're not, by the end of it, like, they're not saints, but they're not, they're so it seems like almost everyone else in Gotham City is corrupted to some level. So it's just, if they were to have been as corrupt too, that really just would have just made the whole movie incredibly depressing. But
yeah, it couldn't be like that.
no, but they weren't saints, but they still were, they still were good people worth remembering fondly.
Yeah, and we learn that when Bruce visits Alfred in the hospital, and he sort of confronts him about what his parents did or what he thought they did, and Alfred was like, no, your parents were good people, and they were, they find out that this reporter gets killed, and it's implied that Thomas had the reporter killed because of what they knew about Martha, and because she had some mental health issues and was in and out of hospitals. But it was really Falcone that directed the hit, and it was because Thomas he's running for mayor, and you get in bed with certain people you normally wouldn't when you're running, when you're in the political game. So he sort of underestimated that relationship with Falcone, and it ended up with this reporter being killed, and which is what led to his and Martha's death. Is he was going to go straight to the police and admit to what happened, and Falcone had to do what Falcone thought he had to do. And so we learned that. And then there's this pivotal scene in the hospital where, Bruce forgives Alfred. Earlier in the film, he had given, there was a line early in the film where he tells Alfred, like, you're not my father, when Alfred's trying to give him some advice. And he realizes that he can't stand to lose, Alfred or anyone close to Bruce thought he had released all these sort of emotional ties one would have with friends and family, but he realized that Alfred is this sort of father figure to him and is someone that he cares about, and he can't stand to lose him. And they share this nice moment. They hold hands, and bat signal shines. Of course. So what did you think of this moment? I thought this was a real turning point for Bruce. Again, we're here two years in as Batman, and this sort of just very violent and sort of no holds barred sort of tactics that he would use against criminals. I think here where he realizes that he has this sort of empathy and family that he's realizing that he has. I thought this was sort of the first sign of him maybe making a turn towards that superhero that we know that he can be. What do you guys think of that scene?
I thought that was, I agree with what you say there, because is, instead of just being anger and vengeance, there's a chance he could actually be what you consider a hero. But there's this probably also what comes from being married to a licensed mental health therapist for years. We mentioned several times where he's not that experienced in being Batman yet. One thing's also pretty apparent by this point. He's not really that good at being Bruce Wayne either. He doesn't. He's more comfortable being in the Batsuit than he is actually being out as a person. This moment with Alfred is one of the few times he's actually trying to be a person. The we keep talking about how his eye, you know, his eyes are like so expressive, but like he's like he spends a lot of the time using the bat suit to like, you know, when he has the mask off, he looks like he's in pain the whole time. So
Right.
it's like, so this isn't just, to me, it's not just about him just turn to be a hero. It's like, I think he needs Alfred to actually be a person too. So it's not, so he's trying to learn to be Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that Alfred's in the hospital. He walks in, and the first thing is like a question about his parents. I thought that was.
Yeah.
I was like, "You're gonna ask him
like,
how are you doing?" Like, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
But I still thought that was super fitting to the emo Batman that we're dealing with here. And I thought it was really, really great in the sense that, like, you know, it connects to all the themes again, like everything you're saying. You know, him being, it's like his whole being is being killed slowly by trying to be, you know, essentially he's kind of trying to be God, right? Like in a way, he's trying to take, you know, the rule of vengeance into his own hands, and, you know, bear all of that, and it's breaking him. And so, you know, him starting to become a little bit more human here with Alfred. Yeah, I agree. That's definitely a turning point towards a better Batman, hopefully.
Yeah, and you know, we see this almost immediately when you know, the bat signal shines, and then, you know, him and Gordon, they find that Selina caught this corrupt cop, who we learn, you know, earlier. Well, we learned a few things earlier. We learned that Falcone, that she's the biological daughter of Falcone, and we learned that this corrupt cop that she's apprehended had to do with her friend Annika's death, and she's literally about to shoot the guy, and, you know, Bruce is like talking her out of it, and then you know, this corrupt cop, Kenzie, he basically says, everyone's working for Falcone. Falcone's behind everything. Even all of Riddler's victims, they all work for Falcone. And he basically runs Gotham. He has the Gotham PD in his pocket. And the you know, the mafia, it's all Falcone. And we hear that recording where we hear Falcone question Annika, and right before her murder, and then that sort of spirals Selina into a rage, and she kicks Kenzie over the ledge, and then Batman has to, you know, catch him, and then so, you know, Selina gets away. She gets to the Iceberg Lounge, and she's there to kill her father, her biological father, Falcone herself, after learning all this. But, you know, she tries to do it. There's a lot of again, it's her biological dad, so there's some hesitation, a lot of rage, a lot of emotions going on. So that kind of gives Falcone an attempt to overpower her, and then he tries to kill her, but then Batman comes in, nick of time, punches him in the face, and then he tries to calm Selina down from killing him, and so gets arrested, justice, right? But he gets killed anyway. There's a shot that at first looks like the Penguin might have taken, because he sort of pulls out, he was reaching. You know, the Falcone kind of insults him on the way out, and but the shot comes from an apartment window down the street, and they head over there, and it's empty. They get a tip that someone saw the Riddler go down the fire escape, and he's just sitting at a diner. The cops find him, they arrest him. There's no you know, he's not fighting back. He's just like accepted his fate, you know. We learn his name's Edward Nashton. He's an accountant. So far, very unassuming things. They lock him up at Arkham, and then the Batman goes to interrogate him. And then in this scene, we learn that, you know, he's how the Riddler has envied Bruce Wayne because of who he was, you know, being the son of, you know, rich parents and all the attention that he got. So that jealousy sort of dated back to his time at the orphanage. And he sort of related to Bruce and that they were both orphans, but obviously Edward was much less privileged. And you think at first that he knows that Bruce is Batman, but then you know, even Bruce himself kind of gets that sort of hint. But then we see that the Riddler has this sort of fantasy that the Batman is on his side. You know, he kind of relates to the Batman because he's also this guy who's wearing a mask and is, you know, running around and sort of trying to clean up Gotham. And when the Batman tells him, like, dude, I'm not on your side, come on. he just this obviously causes a mental breakdown. And he sort of, he tells him, like, I had this master plan and you were a part of it. And so it's like, oh, wow, there's one more thing, you know.
There's another. I was like, you're not done. Oh, geez.
Yeah. So yeah, they go back to the apartment, and then they find this password to this encrypted video. But by the time they get to this video, you know, it was that was a call out to sort of the Riddler's supporters, who are now willing to help him take on this sort of Gotham cleansing. And then we see that carpenter tool that the Riddler used in the beginning to kill the mayor. That's something that Bruce notices, and they use it to pry open the was it carpet or wood flooring? I don't remember what it was. Yeah, I think you're right. But they see this master plan drawn out underneath the carpet, and they're basically he has these vans situated in certain areas, and he's going to flood Gotham. This sort of this biblical cleansing of Gotham City, which leads to the realization that he's too late. So we get that sort of twist there to where all the vans blow up and Gotham gets flooded, and it's election night, and we learn who the new mayor will be, and then, you know, she's giving a speech at this arena that looks exactly like Madison Square Garden, so there's this whole pivot, like this huge big set piece action scene where these guys dressed up as a Riddler are inside this arena. They attempt to assassinate the newly elected mayor. Batman comes in, and he's fighting all these thugs, and then Catwoman shows up. She helps. The water gets up to a level to where Batman needs to literally save people from drowning. He opens up, he uses this flare, and he's leading these people out. You know, again, it's visually a very, very sort of stunning scene with this. It's only lit by this red flare, and he's literally leading these people, you know, to safety. To your earlier point, this is actually heroic behavior. Right. Yeah. So yeah, that was what I was what I was trying to get to here was, you know, now that we see Batman not just go, you know, he can face these thugs and he can you know, beat them up, but we see here there's a different sort of priority, and it's to save people's lives, and it's to make sure that he can save as many people as possible without anyone getting hurt, instead of inflicting as much pain as possible to his enemies. And I think it was a really cool, again, that shot of him leading the people out. It's again, it's like very biblical. It's like, leading the people to the promised land, or, just it's, Gotham literally did get flooded. So maybe it was, Gotham is sort of getting cleansed, but it's also Batman and Bruce Wayne going through that transformation, and he receiving that cleansing. So what did you guys think of this ending? I mean, this sort of, from the point of the Riddler revealing his plan, and how everything played out, and how do you see Batman coming out here? Like you mentioned, is he a superhero now? Does he seem ready to really be that type of heroic figure? And maybe are there any themes that you sort of caught on to, or anything at all that you thought about the way this thing wrapped up?
Yeah, I mean, I loved the ending. I thought it was extremely fitting. The one thing that I gripe about a lot with a lot of films is that they're very afraid to moralize the ending, and just put it in a moral context and be rather pointed about it. It's something that is like, if you go back to writing from like a Shakespearean perspective, right? A lot of times you get like a soliloquy at the end, and in that soliloquy is basically the entire encapsulation of the whole thing. In today's cinema, it's viewed as like cliche, or like just overbearing or something like that. And I think that's a really sad way to look at these kinds of things. They can be some of the most beautiful parts of movies, and some of the most celebrated parts of movies are those endings that are essentially a soliloquy, about what the film is about. And here we actually got it, which actually surprised me when I started hearing Robert Pattinson's voice narrating the end. I was like, oh, we're actually going to get a soliloquy at the end of this, which surprised me. It's almost the last thing besides like the sort of Catwoman ending that happens after it, but it couches everything very nicely in a moral context of what does it mean to care for people, right? Like, what does it mean to be a hero, essentially? And that's kind of what the film is about. So yeah, and I think I was sitting in the theater, audience seemed very captivated, so I don't see why not we can have more of that kind of stuff.
And they're called cliches because it works really well when it's done right. Yeah. Yeah, he's gone from hurting people to wanting to help people. Maybe that simplifies it, but now he actually wants to help instead of just beat people down, or beat it, take his anger out on people.
Yeah, we see him literally like risk his life, and then he comes out and he just as a side, he takes this adrenaline that kind of looks like the venom that Bane takes in the comics that juices him back up.
I hope it's not that, but it looks like it.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that was more of an Easter egg. I think it was just adrenaline, because it's a very grounded, Batman setting. So I'd be surprised if it was anything like that. But
I have the original trade paperback of that original Venom thing. That was that'd be a pretty rough movie or miniseries.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I like you mentioned, this is not the ending. I mean, it's sort of kind of had a Lord of the Rings quality to it. It's like, oh, you think it's the end, but we see, the city is underwater, and we see the Penguin sort of looking out to Gotham, the Gotham, skyscape, and thinking about, what does he do now? Now Falcone's dead, and what is this sort of power struggle going to be going forward, which I think is going to be really interesting if they can. There is going to be a Penguin HBO series, so I think that's something they're obviously going to explore, and that I'm excited to see. And yeah, again, you mentioned that with the narration and the soliloquy that we get from Bruce, we see, he's going to try to be a better person and then not be driven by vengeance. And then we get this scene, very interesting scene, where the Riddler is just crying and just sad over the news that Batman saved the day. And then we hear a cellmate, who has a particular laugh, and basically tells the Riddler, "Hey, cheer up, I'll be your friend. Maybe they can team up or something."
You ain't never had a friend like me.
Yeah. And then obviously there's a popular deleted scene that we got. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Oh, actually.
Where
No, I haven't. Yeah.
Oh, you guys have to check it out. So if you know, real quick, if you notice at the end of the film, if you stay through the credits, it flashed a URL. And if you go to the URL, there was like this sort of Riddler, cipher clue game that he had to play, and then it eventually led to this deleted scene of the Batman going to Arkham Asylum to talk to the Joker about the Riddler. And look at it. It's on YouTube. You guys should watch it. You actually get Barry Keoghan as the Joker and giving it. That Batman literally goes to him for advice on how to deal with the Riddler. It's a pretty cool scene, which is a great callback to the comics, where every time Batman would catch the Joker, and if the Joker was in Arkham, the Batman would use Joker as a resource. So I thought that was cool, but I thought it was right that they didn't put it in the film. I don't think it would have fit. I think it would have sort of, the Joker is just obviously a big presence. I think it would have taken away from maybe the Riddler's shine. But we do get that little tease of the Joker there at the end. And then we get the sort of goodbye or see you later between Bruce and Selina. Selina says she's deciding to go to, what's the name of the city? Can't think of it off the top of my head, but the city that she mentions that she's going to is an actual city from the comics, where a lot of stuff goes down as well. So again, another Easter egg or maybe a clue as to where Selina will be in sequels, wherever we'll see her. And they part ways, and then we had the film ends. So what do you guys think of that sort of ultimate ending of the film before the credits roll? What did you think of the Joker scene, and what did you think of how Bruce and Selina left things?
She said she was going to go to Bloodhaven, by the way.
Bloodhaven, thank you.
Yeah,
good call.
I think that, it was, I'm going to say, it was a good one. It was probably best way they could end it. I mean, they saved the day, but the city's still kind of underwater. There wasn't going to be a super heroic Justice League. Everything's back the way it was, but this is it leaves a lot of room for more stories. So that one, good way to end it.
Yeah, I thought it was super interesting. Definitely alluded to more. Again, I didn't know much about things going into this film, so I didn't know what they were planning to do with him, and it was pretty obvious by the end of it. I was like, okay, there's going to be more. That's interesting. I love also anything to do with people's interpretations of the Joker. I find them endlessly fascinating. The Batman Joker combination can never be exhausted, in my opinion. There's so many ways to take it. So curious to see how they'll take it this time around. I wonder if there's going to be a I've always wanted a cinematic focus on Arkham more. So I wonder if that'll happen. Because that'd be super cool. That'd be really cool.
I totally agree, and I think that's sort of the direction they might be headed, because Arkham was sort of more of a focus in this film. We see Batman go there, obviously at the end, and then there's that deleted scene where he goes to visit the Joker. And yeah, I think again we don't see any real main villains die except for Falcone. So it's like we got the Riddler in Arkham, the Joker's in Arkham. I think what this film does more than any other film before it is present sort of the rogues gallery of Batman villains, and opens up the possibilities. Because we still have the Penguin, and obviously Riddler and Joker are still out there, and then who knows who else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was a great way to end the film, and now that there's a sequel that's been confirmed, that's no surprise.
No.
Yeah. Where do you think they might go? I mean, do you have any predictions as to maybe who the villain might be? Do you think it'll be the Joker? Do you think they'll wait? What direction do you think it'll be? I know I read a recent interview with Robert Pattinson that he really loves the Court of Owls storyline from the comics. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that. I know they kind of visited it in the Gotham series, which was not that good. But I thought the Court of Owls is a very popular comic run, and one that I enjoyed. So, and I think this sort of world lends itself to that story, this sort of secret society, hidden underworld of Gotham. I think that this sort of Gotham that we've gotten, I think would fit perfectly for a Court of Owls storyline. So just interested to know what you guys would like to see, or where you think they might go.
I think something like the Court of Owls. Yeah, I heard of that too. Would probably. I mean, Joker is. I take that back. I was about to say Joker is easy, but Joker's not easy. Doing the Joker right is hard. Heath Ledger's gonna be hard to. I mean, just basically it'd be hard to do another Joker one without thinking that through, because Heath Ledger did it so well. Court of Owls would be really interesting, because that would just, like you said, sync up with the fact that just Gotham, many other Batman shows have done it, but this one does it particularly well. There's this sense of just Gotham is just corrupt and just entrenched. There's just this inherent corruption where no one is who you think they are. And the Court of Owls would just go right along with that, where it's a society that has been there as long as Gotham has existed, if not longer. And from there, you could, if you had the Court of Owls as kind of the backdrop of the movie, you could find a way to pick a whole bunch of people out of the rogues gallery and find a way to make it work.
Yeah, I just looked it up real quick because I'm not terribly familiar, and I agree entirely. I think that would be up this franchise's alley for sure. Yeah, I have no idea. Do we know how many films they're is it like a trilogy? Like, do we have any information on that?
Nothing official. I mean, they announced that they're definitely doing a sequel, and they are. What's unique about this film is that they're going to be like spin-off series. So there's, we're getting the Penguin series, and then there's a bunch of rumored series. There could be like a sort of Gotham PD series, I think was rumored. I don't think anything official has been said about it, but I think the only official one so far is the Penguin one. But there could be a Catwoman thing.
I saw the GCPD, okay, take it for what it's worth, because this is wikipedia.com, but
sure.
The GCPD series looks like it was canceled. Penguin's going forward, and
I think I heard that too. Yeah,
and then
I think I heard it was canceled.
There's some kind of And the last thing on that paragraph says, Untitled Arkham series. When revealing that the GCPD spin-off series was not moving forward in March 2022, Reeves explained that it had led to work on a new idea based on Arkham Asylum.
Even better. I would love to see that.
Oh boy, yeah. He says he envisioned a horror tone with Arkham being depicted as a haunted house. Well, yeah, I would too.
Yeah,
that's an easy. Yeah, that's
love
easy.
it.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, so I think obviously, I think as far as the movies go, I think as long as it's people are going to watch it and they're making tons of money, I think they'll keep making them. You know, Robert Pattinson is still relatively young, and you know, I think as long as he and Matt Reeves wants to do it, I think, you know, I'd love to at least see a trilogy of films and then, you know, some series that go along with it. And yeah, I would love to see Court of Owls. I would love to see a kind of maybe grounded take on Mr. Freeze, what that might look like, because he is a very interesting character, and there are some more grounded takes on him from the comics that I think would work well. But yeah, I mean, being a huge Batman fan, I would love to see any sort of villain, just as long as it's done in the right way. And I think, you know, it's in good hands with Reeves and Pattinson and the rest of the cast. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited for the future of this franchise, and where it can go. Yeah. And before we wrap up, did you guys have any final thoughts about the film or the future?
DC stuff like this is pretty much the reason I take that back. This, combined with the fact that HBO Max has decades of Sesame Street content for my kids, those are the two reasons why I have HBO Max. Those are the two reasons I have HBO Max subscription at this point. So I'm looking forward to the stuff that DC doesn't hit the heights of Marvel like every single time, but man, they do some interesting stuff.
Yeah,
totally.
I agree entirely. And one of the things, if someone said you could only make, you know, 3 films in feature films your entire life, and they said, and it all have to be Batman, I would 100%. There's just so much to explore. I love it. Yep. So whenever there's another representation, even if it's not the best, I'm still interested to see what the take is. You know, it tells you a lot about the filmmakers, it tells you a lot about even maybe the mood of the time. And it's super cool. So I'm excited to see what happens. Hopefully it's not too bloated. Because I think DC stuff, as a matter of record, has worked a lot better in more contained formats. So hopefully they know when to put an end to it. So it's hopeful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. And again, I think Matt Reeves proved that he can do a good trilogy with the Planet of the Apes films. So I think yeah, he's never missed yet, in my opinion. So I'm very excited. And yeah, I think I'm very interested. I mean, I loved Batfleck. You know, he wasn't in, I wouldn't say his movies were the best, but I thought he was a great Batman. And we're getting Michael Keaton back in the Flash film. I mean, if that ever comes out, if you're following the Ezra Miller news, but but yeah, give me all the Batman. I'm right there with you. I've loved Batman since I can remember. He's always been my favorite cartoon character, comic book character. You know, and now some of my favorite movies are Batman movies. So can't wait for what we get next. And with that, just before we wrap up, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Movies and TV shows, including Monica V, Adam N, Lucas D, Russell T, and Joe S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of movies and TV shows and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. That's it from us. What did you think of the Batman, or what we had to say about it? Let us know by commenting on the show posting at sqpn.com/secrets or the StarQuest Facebook page, or send us an email to secrets@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. Until next time, Irving, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And David, thank you as well.
Always a pleasure.
And once again, I'm Andrew Hermiz. Thank you for listening to the secrets of movies and TV shows on StarQuest.